Welcome back to our Robert's Rules of Order, newly revised 12th edition. My name's DakotaJKeeler, and today we're going to be talking about how to handle emotion and bring it before an assembly. You know, like the most important thing you can do in a deliberative body. So, how you handle emotion varies based on what it is, whether it's a main motion, a point of order, disciplining a member, etc. But generally, there are 6 steps, 3 to bring it, and 3 to consider it. Now, when you bring a motion, you first have to state it. So, I motion that we get pizza on Saturday. Or, I move, or I carry. Then, you need another member to second it. So, you need 2 people generally to bring business before a body. The third, the chair states the question. Now, this is not the same thing as putting the question. That's a very different nature. Now, only the chair can place a motion before the assembly. Simply because it was made and seconded doesn't place it there. Once it's on the floor, then the motion is debatable, if it is debatable. Then, if the assembly decides to do what it wants, whether it adopts or carries or rejects it, that is their business. Now, to make a main motion, first you must have the floor, and the motion must be in the nature of the order of business currently in session. So if it's new business, you might say, I move that we get pizza. And that might be perfectly valid if you didn't have a motion like that already on the floor. However, if that was a motion that was in the middle of being adjourned or postponed, to a later time, then it would be out of order. You would have to wait till you're at the unfinished business. Now, you would make the motion by saying, I move that. Or with greater formality, you could say, I move the adoption of the following resolution. Resolved that we get pizza. Now, what this means is, all motions in parliamentary procedure are resolutions. Normally, though, if you're going to do it in the resolution style, you're going to write it out. It's going to be more formal. Now, it should be noted that it's the job of the chair to help other members understand how to bring business before the assembly, whether it's a new motion, whether it's to postpone, whether it's a point of order, etc. It is the job of the chair to help business flow and to help members learn the magic formulas. We are not simply going to deny a member who has never known what Robert's Rules is before from bringing business when it can be simply addressed quickly by the chair. Okay, what do you want to do? Oh, you want to postpone debate or close debate? Well, this is how you do it. Then the chair says, the resolution offered by Mrs. A is as followed, or the secretary will read the resolution. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped a part. A larger complex motion or resolution should be in writing. Now, the chair has a right to make you put a motion in writing, but if you're making a large motion or a complex one, just put it in writing. Be helpful to your fellow man. Now, you would then pass it to the chair. Now, if for some reason you can't, or it's impracticable to read yourself, you would sign it and then pass it to the chair or secretary ahead of time. The member would say, I move the adoption of the resolution relating to, which I delivered to the chair or the secretary ahead of time. The mover may identify it by its subject matter, its title, number, etc. So, for example, the chair would say, the resolution offered by Mrs. A is as followed, or the secretary will read the resolution offered by Mrs. A. So if you were to do this, you might say, I move the adoption of the resolution relating to getting pizza, which I delivered to the secretary ahead of time. And then, obviously, you would repeat that, or the chair would. Now, when a motion is made, the member then sits down. The mover has the first right to speak in a debate if they wish to, but you don't get a right to stay on the floor, and generally you don't get a right to, like, pre-cue yourself or take precedence. Any member can request for clarity or to have it read again. So, if you didn't hear the motion, you make a point of order and you just request, hey, can you read that again? Can you restate that? In some large conventions, it's a practice, if they wish to first speak in debate, to remain standing at the microphone. So even though the general rule is you made the motion, you sit down, at some of the conventions I've been to, because you got like 100 people, there's 2 microphones, and to sit down involves you walking all the way across the room, it's kind of common to just say, stay standing if you wish to speak first because you're the mover. Strictly speaking, no debate or speech can happen without appending motions. Motions can be giving explanatory text, but must not devolve into a speech or become a debate. Generally speaking, when a member obtains the floor, if there is no pending motion, that you need to make one immediately. So if I get the floor and I just like, well, could we, I guess, no, make your motion. Or ask a question like, point of order, it's too hot in here, can we open a window? Or is it possible to open a window? Like, you could do that. Or you can make a formulaic question like, would it be in order now to do X? But you need to do something. You can't just sit there and be like, well, I don't know. Now, if a member doesn't make a motion immediately while no motion is pending, they must first ask for the permission of the assembly. You want to strictly enforce this. Now, some of the conventions I've been at, there were members who like, oh, point of personal privilege, can I just make a speech? And we would literally say no, and they would just keep talking, and we're like, no, we voted no. It is important that you keep this strictly enforced because you need to keep business moving. And if you don't keep business moving, or you convolute business because some douche is up there being like, blah, 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 did you see blah? It's like, that fundamentally disrupts the flow of the body. So don't allow it. Now, in smaller bodies, this rule is sometimes relaxed when people are not accustomed to operating under it. However, it is good for the body to refrain from relaxing this rule. Some of these rules, like needing a second when you're in a board of 7 people, that makes sense getting rid of. You're a small body, you're there to do business, and you just want to get it done. This, don't ever relax. I'm sorry, just don't. Unless the assembly has previously allowed for the topic to be discussed without a motion, the discussion happens at the discretion of the chair or until someone makes a point of order. So if we're just having a discussion, like, man, the weather out there is nice, you could come up and say, point of order, no motion has been made, and therefore no discussion is allowed. Then the chair must require that a motion be made. This is one of parliamentary law's most powerful tools for keeping a body on track. So use it. Once a motion is made, another member, without obtaining the floor, says, I second the motion. I second that, or second. Now, in small bodies, there is no need to even stand. In large assemblies, the seconder stands and states their name, and other identifying information is necessary. So, I second, or Dakota, I second, delegate from Michigan. Then says Mr. President or Chair, I second the motion. Now, labor unions tend to use the word support instead. Both mean the same thing. Just use I second, even if you're in the union. We want to keep the fundamental language the same. Like, there's no need to add that confusion. If there is no second, the chair should ask, is there a second to the motion? Or in case of a written resolution, Mrs. A just moved the adoption of the resolution just read. Is there a second? If it is in relation to the resolution handed out, you could say, Mrs. A has moved for the adoption of the resolution relating to blah 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 as printed. Is there a second? If there is still not a second, then the chair says, there is no second. Therefore, the motion isn't before the assembly. The next item of business is, or if appropriate, so if there's no other business, you'd say, is there any further business? Now, when another member seconds a motion, that merely means they wish the motion to be heard. That does not mean they support what it says. For example, they may wish for the body to go on the record rejecting the idea, rejecting the motion. A motion made by the direction of a board or duly appointed committee doesn't require a second, so long as it consists of more than one member, because it was made by a majority of that group. So there's more than 2 people who want to discuss it. And you can learn more about the rules of appointment in 315, 5012, and 5013D. The purpose of a second in large bodies is to save the body's time of having to dispose of an unfavorable motion. This means we need a couple people who want to talk and discuss about something. In routine motions, the chair can move ahead and state the question if he believes there's enough support for it. So, if we have a motion to get pizza and the chair believes there's enough support for it, he can just do it. However, until debate starts, or if there is no debate, the chair begins to take a vote, any member can rise and make a point of order that the motion has not been seconded, and thus the chair is formally required to ask for it. He's required to formally ask. Meaning, if the chair just says, the motion is to get pizza, is there any in favor debate? If George stands up and starts talking, it's too late. You can't call foul for the second. However, if George didn't stand up and no one stand up to start talking, you can say, point of order, this motion has not been seconded. Or if there's no debate allowed on the motion, if the vote has been started, so the chair puts the question, then it's too late. So he says, all in favor say aye. The moment he starts that, too late. And parliamentary motions that don't require a second can be found at table 44 through 45. Now, it's important to note that once the debate or vote starts, the lack of a second doesn't affect its validity. It's still a thing, it's still on the table, it's too late. When a motion has been made and seconded, the chair states it to the assembly by giving the exact motion and indicates that it is open for debate, stating the question. There are different forms to be used per context. So you can say, it is moved and seconded, that repeating the motion. You could refer to it as the written, as the resolution passed out, as the one just read. We're not going to go through all of these because they're just stuff like that. How was the motion made? And then you say the motion was made and seconded, or moved and seconded, referring to the motion, whether written, etc. As soon as a motion is made and seconded, the chair must state the question, unless it is out of order, or in his opinion he believes the wording is not clear. Rules for when motions are in and out of order can be found in section 5, 6, and 7, and the first 3 of the standard descriptive characters in 11 through 37. So these are all your motions that Robert's Rules explicitly calls out, and the first 3 descriptive characters tell you. Now, if a member has obtained the floor and brought an invalid motion forward, the chair, if possible, should tell the member what would be in order and would affect a similar result. So because we want to keep business going, and if it is possible to do something, we want to let it happen. That doesn't mean we abandon our formality. That doesn't mean we allow things out of order to happen. It means if it is possible to happen, we tell you what you could do to affect it differently. It'd be like if you had a toolbox, and someone's over there taking a Phillips to a flathead screwdriver, and you come along and say, well, I know you want the screw removed, but the Phillips is out of order. What you need is the flathead, and that would achieve the result you want of removing the screw. Now, the chair rules that the motion is out of order, so the Phillips in that example. He doesn't rule that you are out of order, nor your motion is out of order. The chair should never say you because it implies a member breaches decorum or other misconduct. Only during disciplinary procedures should the chair ever say you, and we will learn more about those in 61. Now, if the motion is not clear in its wording or requires something to be recorded, it is the job of the chair to make sure the motion is suitable and preserving its context to the satisfaction of the mover. The chair must never omit of a motion that the secretary would have to paraphrase for the record. This is so important, guys. If your secretary can't keep up typing your motion, or the secretary has to say, well, this or that, and it's kind of like that, it's a bad motion. The chair should not let it go forward. He should make you clarify. He should make you provide it in writing for the benefit of the whole body. The chair can, of his own volition or by the secretary, require that a main motion, amendment, or instruction be submitted in writing. And if you are a chair, make use of it. It'll save you a lot of time. It'll save the secretary a lot of time at a minor inconvenience to the member. Now, until the chair has stated the question, the maker can modify or withdraw it. So if I say, I move that we get pizza on Saturday, and Tyler seconds it, right? The chair has not yet stated it, and so I could say, oh no, Sunday. That's perfectly legitimate. Now, you could argue it needs a new second because the motion has been changed. But Tyler, before the question stated, can withdraw it. And so unless he withdraws it, we're going to assume that he accepts it. But once the chair has said, it is moved and seconded that we get pizza on Saturday, it is too late for you to modify it like that. It is now the property of the body. And you can amend it through a motion to amend, but it's now the body's choice. It's no longer yours. Modifying motions before they are stated is for real quick and uncontroversial changes that are likely to have wide support. So, for example, let's say we were supposed to get together on Sunday, but I made my motion to get pizza on Saturday. Saying, oops, I meant Sunday, or no, we need to change to get pizza on Sunday. That's probably an uncontroversial change because we were planning on getting together on Sunday, but then you said the Saturday thing. Like, what are we doing on Saturday? Before a motion is stated, if a member believes the statement of a simple fact would cause its withdrawal, he can get up and without being recognized say, Mr. Chair, I would like to ask if the member would be willing to withdraw his motion in view of, and you briefly say it. The maker responds with, I withdraw, or I decline to withdraw. If it is withdrawn, the chair says the motion is withdrawn and moves on. If the purpose was to deal with a more urgent matter first, the chair immediately recognizes the proper member to bring it up. If the maker is unwilling to withdraw his motion, the chair says the member declines to withdraw. And if the motion has been seconded, he then states the question. So, let's say we're going down to Mackinac Island, right? And I say I move that we get McDonald's Sunday. However, you might come up and say, Mr. Chair, I would like to ask if the member would be willing to withdraw his motion in view of the fact that there are no McDonald's on Mackinac Island. Well, if there's no McDonald's at Mackinac Island, my motion to get McDonald's is kind of new. It's moo. It's pointless. It's a waste of our time to consider it. And so I should withdraw it. But I might have not known that there's no McDonald's at Mackinac. Now, no debate is allowed before a motion is stated. However, it might be necessary to allow brief consultations with the chair. This is entirely at the chair's discretion and should not be allowed to escalate. One way to help mitigate this is to remain standing, whereas normally the chair is seated. This would be like the asking the question, or how do I phrase this, or is this in order? You do not want to allow this to turn into a debate between you and the chair. You do not want to allow this to turn into a TED Talk speech. It's just real quick. Is this in order if I did this? How would I phrase this? Things like that. Now, I know this was one of the longer videos because we just passed 20 minutes. I thank you for watching, and I hope you have a good day.